welcome everyone. Can you use that loud? We're good? Okay. Do we have enough seats? Hi folks, there's some seats over here. Hi Allison. I'll say, we definitely have enough seats for everyone here, so don't feel shy about sitting next to someone you don't know. Okay, welcome folks. Thanks for coming. Before we get started and I hand this over to Bob Court, I want to let everyone know that the air conditioning is coming on. You'll hear it, but I will go through all the logistics very, very briefly after Bob gets us kicked off.
Good morning all. Welcome to IIIF in the Netherlands. On behalf of the IIIF Consortium and also the Dutch Digital Heritage Network, a warm welcome to Leiden. Hope you have a good conference. I'm only here to introduce Gertrui Verbraak. She's the member of the board of the National Library of the Netherlands. Under her reign, the National Library became part of the IIIF Consortium, and she will do the introduction today. Gertrui.
Dear colleagues, dear friends of IIIF, it's a real pleasure and a genuine honor for the KB, the National Library of the Netherlands, to welcome you all to the Netherlands for the 2026 IIIF Annual Conference. Whether you have traveled from across this city or across an ocean, you are very welcome here. I would like to begin where IIIF itself began, not with a specification, but with a community. IIIF, of course, is a set of open standards, but anyone who has worked with it knows that the standards are only the visible part. What gives IIIF its power is the network of people: curators, developers, researchers, students, librarians, archivists, and technologists, who have over the past decade chosen to solve the problems together rather than separately. The KB joined the IIIF Consortium because we believe in that choice. And not just the KB, but the whole community of the Dutch Digital Heritage Network. So before anything else, thank you. Thank you to the editors and the working groups, to the community and the technical coordinators, to the ambassadors, to the institutions that fund this work, and to everyone who has filed an issue, reviewed a pull request, written documentation, run a workshop, or simply convince a skeptical colleague that interoperability is worth the effort. The work that matters happens between the conferences. We see it, we benefit from it, and we are very grateful for it. Let me say a few words about why this work matters so much. Cultural heritage is facing continuous challenge. Our collections, images, manuscripts, maps, films, sound recordings, three-dimensional objects, they are scattered across thousands of institutions, in hundreds of systems, in dozens of countries, for most of the digital era. Each of those institutions built its own silo. A researcher wanted to compare a manuscript here in Leiden with one in Paris or one in Tokyo, had to get acquainted with three interfaces: accept 3 sets of restrictions, and hope the screenshots survive the journey. IIIF reframes challenges as opportunities. By agreeing on a small, well-designed set of open APIs, our sector has given itself the ability to publish once and to reuse many times, without vendor lock-in, without bespoke integrations, and without asking our users to care which organizations hold which object. For a public institution that contributes to public values, that is not a technical detail. That is a strategic principle, namely the foundation of open access to information. It is how we honor the obligation to make collections genuinely, durably, connected, and openly available. In the Netherlands, we have taken that principle a step further. Through the Dutch Digital Heritage Network, IIIF is no longer something Dutch heritage institutions may choose to adopt. The IIIF Image API and the Presentation API are part of the national requirements for collection management systems. Vendors serving the Dutch heritage sector implement them. Institutions that receive funding through our acceleration program rely on them. This is, I think, a quietly significant moment, a national heritage sector saying with one voice that interoperability is not a feature, it is infrastructure. And the point of that infrastructure is not the infrastructure itself. The point is what becomes possible on top of it. More images, audio, video, 3D models, reaching more end users in more contexts. And just as importantly, those same objects become available to specialists for enrichment, such as transcription, annotation, linking, and georeferencing. Sometimes through tools built right here in the Netherlands, such as Allmaps for historical maps. Each layer of enrichment becomes, in turn, available to the next researcher, the next teacher, the next curious citizen. That is the compounding return of an open standard. I wish you a productive, inspiring, and genuinely enjoyable conference. The future of digital heritage will be shaped, in no small part, during this conference, in this community. Thank you for shaping it together. Welcome to the Netherlands. Welcome to IIIF 2026.
Okay, thank you. So just a few logistical things before we get into the meat of the conference. One, the Wi-Fi is KPN hotspot. It is open, you don't need a password. Okay. This event, like all IIIF events, is ruled by the IIIF Code of Conduct. If you would like to read it, the link is there. As before, staff, local volunteers, and committee members are wearing red lanyards. You're probably wearing a blue lanyard. Tomorrow, a photographer from the City of Leiden is coming, and if you do not want to be photographed by that person, you should trade out your blue lanyard for a black lanyard at the registration desk. In addition to this mic, we will have 2 hand mics coming around during the Q&A. We would ask, even if you don't think you need a mic, I never think I need a mic, please use the mic. If you'd like to see the schedule, which unfortunately has been a little bit in flux, there's a QR code here. It's also up to date on the IIIF conference website. I'll give you a minute if anyone wants to grab that. Okay. Okay, in addition to all the conversation happening here, there's a lot of conversation happening in our Slack channel. If you'd like to join, if you're not there already, there is a link here to join our Slack community, and then the 2026 annual conference channel is a great place where people will be talking about things going on, dropping links to things that show up during the presentations. It's a nice collaborative space now and after the conference. Meals and breaks are going to happen in the room where we all just shared coffee and in the adjoining room behind it. There are vegetarian and vegan options as part of the main buffet, and all allergens should be labeled. If you have a specific allergy that you told us about during registration, please check in with one of the staff members to make sure that what you are getting is what you should be having. We also invite you to join us tonight at Naturalis Biodiversity Center from 6 to 8 p.m. for our conference reception. The conference reception is fully vegetarian this year, and we'll have hors d'oeuvres and beverages. I'd like to take a moment to say thank you to all of our sponsors that help us run this event, to have all of the social events that we have afterwards, to expand our scholarship program. We really can't do this without them. First, thank you to our platinum sponsor, Kakadu Software. They are sponsoring the reception tonight. If you see Graham later, give him a shout. Our welcome drinks that we had last night were sponsored by Science. Claudio and Irene are here. You can see them at the table out there. I'd also like to mention that it is Science's 10th anniversary, so we are coming up on a decade of collaboration between us and them, and I think they've been present at probably every IIIF conference since then. Our scholarship partnership this year is OCLC. They have provided funds for us to offer scholarships to 3 recipients this year. It's just a great way for us to expand the audience of participants and broaden the participation in this event. Our gold sponsor is Digerati. There's lots of folks here from Digerati if you'd like to say hello to them. Our silver sponsors are COGAP, From the Page, and Micrio. There are folks from all of those places. If you'd like to see Tristan or Andy from COGAP, Sarah and Ben from the Page, and Erwin from Micrio, say hello. Our bronze sponsor is Digital Scholar. And then our consortium champions, Wellcome Collection, Yale, and Stanford Libraries. As part of their being champions of the IIIF Consortium, they go above and beyond in their membership dues, and part of that supports the conference each year. I'd like to also thank our program committee. We had a truly enormous number of submissions this year, and this group does great and careful work reviewing all of them and putting together a program that is interesting and engaging for the broad community of people that we have attending. Also, thanks to our local program committee, Bob Corritt, Wilbert Helmus, Carola Vanderdrift, Daphne Van Weingarten, Jules Schoonman, and Johannes Wagner. You probably saw Carola and Daphne outside of the registration desk. These are great folks that have helped us over the last year. They're also a great resource if you have questions about Leiden or the wider community here. And then a huge thanks to our partner, the Dutch Digital Heritage Network. We would not be able to have the conference here in 3 different cities in all of these locations without their continued support. So thank you to Bob and to Wilbert for helping us this year. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to our Managing Director, Martin Kalfatovic, to speak next.
Thank you, Caitlin. And I don't think Caitlin introduced herself, but Caitlin Perry is our Communications and Community Manager. If you don't know Caitlin, you really should know Caitlin because she really keeps everything running behind the scenes at IIIF and in front of the scenes. So as Caitlin said, I'm Martin Kalfatovic. I'm the Managing Director for the IIIF Consortium. And along with Caitlin, we also have Glenn Robeson, who many of you know as our Technical Coordinator. We are the staff of IIIF. Last year, we gathered in Leeds and were hosted for the conference at the University of Leeds, and it was a fabulous conference. And here is our group photo at our reception that night. But this year, we get to welcome you to the Netherlands. And again, thank you to all of the people from the Dutch Digital Network, the KB, and Leiden that have really made this a great opportunity. I do take responsibility for us being in 3 cities this year because I really do love the Netherlands. I thought, well, we can't just be in one city, so we really need to be in as many cities as possible, and we couldn't fit Delft in, I'm sorry. We have over 218 registrants at the conference this year, which is one of our higher totals in a number of years, and they come from 30 countries around the world. So again, it's quite an international group, and again, thank you all for making the journey from wherever you came here to the Netherlands. What I want to start off with are a few of the consortia initiatives that we've been doing for the last year since the last conference. The first one I want to mention is our strategic plan. So we recently approved the strategic plan for 2026-2028. And out of that, we developed a vision statement to build and sustain a global community to provide richer access to the world's image, audiovisual, and 3D digital content now and in the future, as well as a mission statement, which I won't read the totality of. But again, we had a large group of people from the executive committee and elsewhere who helped work on this iteration of the plan. I'd also like to thank Josh Hadro, my predecessor, for outlining the key portions of the strategic plan that I inherited, which were really helpful, which again are the 4 pillars of advocacy and leadership, technical development, scholarship and community development, and membership and value. And we've developed different initiatives that will fall under these pillars, which we'll be publishing on the website later this month. The other thing we've been working on over the course of the last year is engaging with the wiki community. And to that end, we did commission a piece which is called Zooming Out. How can we integrate IIIF and the Wikimedia? So this is a paper that will be released again later this month. And again, we had a lot of input from the broader wiki community, and it's really our attempt to see where we can have different kinds of connectivity within that larger community without, again, imposing any type of structure on the collaborations. The other important thing we did this year is develop new membership tiers. Recognizing the complexities in the global environment from a financial, social, and political situation, we really felt it was important to maintain the overall membership of the IIIF Consortium and how we could do that in order to facilitate more participation from different institutions. So to that end, we revised the different tiers for the membership. So again, as Caitlin mentioned, we have the championship tier, which are key members and participants of IIIF that are at the $16,000 level. And then we have the full membership, which we lowered the fees for down to $8,000 and then maintained associates at $2,500 and added a new tier to try to encourage participation from low and middle income countries as defined by the World Bank at $1,000 that do get the same benefits as the 2,500 associate members. So again, this is our attempt to sort of broaden the community and maintain our current organization. And we also added the opportunity to have what we call a top-up or add-on fee. So again, for Allmaps, our community development fund and strategic initiative funds, institutions that may already have budgeted at different levels, there's the ability to add on that. And we had 12 members who opted to include an add-on to their participation in the consortia. So we also, this year, were able to welcome new members to our dots, red and blue, around the globe. These are actually implementations. So the 4 new members of the consortium are the University of Bern, the University of Vienna Library, the University of Minnesota, and right down the road, the Technical University of Delft. So again, thank you all for, if anyone's here from all of those institutions, thank you and welcome to your first IIIF annual conference and showcase as participants of the consortia. We also, again, have an executive committee that is very useful for me in terms of managing the overall organization. And our election this year, we had 4 organizations that were either re-elected or newly elected to the executive committee. That's the National Gallery of Art, Northwestern University, University of Edinburgh, and the newest member is Indiana University, and our representative, John Dunn, is here in his first conference as a executive committee member. And then our operating committee are the people that really do the sort of really close-in work, and we have members. Tom Cramer's our chair, Rebecca Hirsch, who's over here somewhere, is our vice chair, Neil Fitzgerald from the British Library as treasurer, and then Rashmi Singhal and Simeon Warner and David Newberry are our at-large members. So this is sort of the group of people that does sort of a lot of the help of managing with Caitlin, Glenn, and I. I'd now like to turn it over to none other than Glenn to give you the technical update for IIIF and the work that he and the editors and the TSGs and all of the other groups have been doing for the last year. Glenn?
Thank you, Martin. So I'd like to start with some really big news. So I hope you're ready for this. IIIF version 4 is released. Yeah! So if you've been following on, this has been a kind of a long development. So it's been over 6 years in the making between version 3 and version 4. So version 4 is, the big addition is support for 3D, but there are also lots of different functionality in version 4. I'd like to say a huge thank you to the IIIF editors. So the IIIF editors do lots and lots of work behind the scenes to write these specifications, to go through issues, to discuss with the community, and to come up with the really difficult problems and solve them and put them into spec. So a huge thank you to the IIIF editors. Also, thank you to the 3D TSG. So the TSG is made up of volunteers across the world who are interested in 3D, and they've done so much work over the past 6 years, implementing specifications, suggesting use cases, working with the editors. There's an awful lot of time that's gone in there, all from volunteers. And then the Technical Review Committee, that's the members of the consortium and also community members that review changes to the IIIF specifications. So about 3 weeks ago, they met to review the version 4 of the specification and approved it. And also the wider IIIF community. So almost everybody's been involved in getting us to the point where we can release version 4. So it's available on the website. It's known as a release candidate. So we're putting it out there. We think it's almost ready, but we're really encouraging implementation and feedback. So this is a point if you're looking at implementing version 4, now's the time while you can give us problems that you come across, anything that we need to change. Now is the time to let us know before we publish it for a final release. Feedback is welcome, particularly through GitHub issues on the API repository, but you can also raise it in Slack. We'll also be continuing the 3D TSG meetings every 2 weeks, and that's another place to have discussions. And as I mentioned, we're hopeful that this is the point where it's going to be minor changes to the specification. So we think it's done, but really this is the time to encourage implementation. And then the next stage will be a full release, which hopefully will be within 6 months to a year, but we'll see depending on how many issues come through. So if you're looking at implementing 4.0, the first thing to look at is we've got lots of example manifests to work with. So in the new specification, the main part of the specification contains lots and lots of use cases with working manifests. So it would be great to see them implemented in code to make sure they work correctly. We've also got demo manifests as part of the 3D TSG. There's lots of different 3D examples in there of trying different things. We're currently updating that to match the specifications. That's a good source of example manifests. And then the cookbook, at the moment it supports version 3, but we're working on version 4 recipes, so that'd be another place to get example manifests to work with. We've also got a fixtures repository, which is where we store lots of demo images, demo videos, and also we've got some demo 3D models. So if you need content to work with, we've also got models on there. And we can add other models if you're the opening license that we want to use for testing. There's a particularly good set of 3D scanned chess set pieces, which were used a lot in the specification, but they're really beautiful. So you can get access to them on the fixtures repository. We've also got updated the validator. So the validator now supports version 4.0. There are multiple ways to use the validator. You can go to the presentation validator website. You can use it on the command line, and you can also use it as a GitHub action. So if you've got a repository full of manifests, version 3, 4, 2 even, you can just add it as a GitHub action, and it will validate them to make sure they're valid IIIF. We've also been working as a community to do implementations, and there's a lot of implementations already. So we work in a group called IIIF Commons, and we meet regularly to kind of help with the development of software to implement particularly 3D. We've already seen a Blender plugin for scene creation, so you can export IIIF Manifest from Blender. Manifesto.js. Manifesto is a JavaScript library which underpins many of the different IIIF viewers. We've been working to add support for 3D. And then we've got many different community viewers, including Smithsonian Voyager, Morphosource, an X3D demo, and also Compact Viewer that already supports IIIF version 4. We've also been working with a student project with the University of Wisconsin, and this was a group project that's been happening over the last 3 or 4 months. A group of students working in groups, and they've been working on creating 3D manifest editors. So I'm happy to supply links to these, but we've got one which is heavily inspired by the Digerati manifest editor, and one that uses the Smithsonian Voyager editor, which already allows 3D editing, and they've added metadata support. So we've seen lots of different implementations, but that's going to be the focus now over the next 6 months, is really pushing for implementation of version 4 and feeding back any issues to the editors so that we can get a final release. And with that, I think I'm going to pass over to Caitlin. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. So following Glenn's technical update, I'd like to let you know what's been going on in the last year in the IIIF community. So a brief overview by the numbers. In addition to this event, we had 362 registrants at our online meeting in January. That included lots of lightning talks, our plenary session, and then 6 workshops. We had 9 glycerin showcases this year for people to drop in and learn about that technology and how to annotate IIIF images. We had 50 folks show up for our Digerati's Accessible Digitization workshop. We had one, what I've lovingly called the Alphabet Showcase, a cross-community event with AI for LAM, IIPC, and IIIF, in an effort for us to do more outreach with other communities of practice and find overlap and places for continued engagement. And 10 community calls. What this doesn't capture is all of the stuff that's happening every single week in the IIIF community, the things that are happening in our community groups, in our technical specification groups, the quarterly trainings that Glenn is doing every year, and all the stuff that happens on the road. If you've been on the road this year at a conference, you probably know that lots of people from the IIIF community have been. And we have been busy trying to engage with lots of people in lots of different places. I'd like to talk briefly about one of our new community groups and then in more in depth about another. So our new interactive 2D group, we have 2 of our co-chairs here today, and you might be saying, what is interactive 2D, or moving books as we call it? And what you're looking at here is a Vevelle. The idea here is that there is a separate use case beyond 2D images and 3D images. We may not need this to be in full 3D, but to capture the essence of this object, we need new ways of viewing them. So the interactive 2D group is working to create a common vocabulary for interactive text components, things like flapbooks, Vevelles, things that slip and slide. They're working on gathering needs for the IIIF community members to consider how we want to introduce interaction with these objects, and they're developing use cases for things like movable books. They meet the 3rd Thursday of the month. I'm not going to go into too much more detail because Emily and Teresa are here and they're going to be presenting on the work of this group tomorrow. So if this is something that interests you, I would encourage you to attend their session. And then the Accessibility and User Experience group has taken on a big task in how to maybe change the way that the IIIF community engages between developers and end users. So none of those folks could be there, but I'm going to let them speak for themselves about their group and the IIIF Ideas Box.
Hi everyone, this is Stacy Reddick, Brittany Lapierre, and Meredith Steinfels from the Accessibility and Usability Community Group, and we're delighted to share with you all a little about our new group and our new feature, the Idea Box. The IIIF Accessibility and Usability Community Group is committed to improving the discovery, use, and reuse of IIIF resources across institutions and domains through recommendations for people-focused design. We do this by engaging with experts in usability, accessibility, and human-computer interaction, as well as community institutions and individuals. We advocate for people-centered strategies that encompass all aspects of digitization and IIIF content consumption. We created the Idea Box to help connect community members who have ideas or challenges to community members who might be able to help realize those ideas or solve those challenges. We've connected a simple web form to a GitHub project to give each of these groups a familiar, intuitive source for sharing. In developing the idea for this box, we set as goals that the form should be simple, easy, and quick to fill out. It should be comprehensive enough to serve community members with any type of challenge or idea. We wanted non-technical community members, if you don't like GitHub, you're not alone, to feel comfortable using it, and we wanted to give technical community members a place to easily find suggestions and use them as inspiration without adding too much process burden. Many thanks to the IIIF Ambassadors and Education Community Group for providing feedback on the Idea Box.
The form includes 4 main questions designed to be approachable for anyone working with digital media, even if you don't know what IIIF is. We've intentionally kept everything non-technical and focused on collecting real user needs. First question: what is your idea, question, or challenge related to working with digital media tools or IIIF? For example, I'm wondering if there's a simple way to let students save, organize, and return to the notes or annotations they make on images, especially when those images come from different collections or tools. Ideally, this would work across platforms so students can continue their work or share it without needing technical setup. Second question: what were you trying to accomplish when your idea or challenge came up? For example, I was trying to create an online teaching activity where students could compare images from different institutions, add notes, and revisit those notes later. While I could view the images in existing tools, I couldn't easily save or reuse annotations across platforms. Third question: which area best relates to your idea or challenge? For this question, you might choose authoring text with associated media. Fourth question: who would benefit from solving this problem? In this case, it might be students and educators. Based on the feedback from the community, we also added an optional question where you can share your contact details. If provided, this information is stored privately by the IIIF co-chairs and only shared with your permission if someone wants to connect about your idea. Finally, there's an optional space to share feedback on the form itself. After submitting, you'll receive a link to the GitHub Idea Box board, where you can track your submission. It should appear on the board within 20 minutes. The IIIF Idea Box GitHub board is a community space for discovering unmet needs, proposing tools, and surfacing project ideas. It connects builders, educators, researchers, and institutions who are interested in improving how digital media is used and shared. Each submission becomes a card on the board and moves through stages, from new ideas to discussion to prototyping, development, and sometimes completed tools. Community members can comment, refine ideas, and even claim them for hackathon projects. If you're building something, you can link to your work directly and request feedback. If you're looking for inspiration on your next project idea, be sure to explore the IIIF Idea Box on GitHub. For end users wanting to share your questions, ideas, and experience, you do not need to know how to use GitHub to fill out the form. Submit your questions/ideas today.
An important way to share the Idea Box is from person to person. We've all experienced web forms of dubious or unknown origins, not knowing if it is maintained, reviewed, or even relevant anymore. When a form is shared between peers, it can add in that human element. People are more likely to submit if they know there's a person on the other end. So, when you share our Idea Box, please let them know we're looking. Other ways we're disseminating the Idea Box are via the IIIF Ambassadors, the Outreach Group, Caitlin's amazing work, and IIIF trainings with Glenn. And circling back to my first point, is there a human at the other end, and are they doing anything? Yes, and here's what we are doing. In addition to any sort of routine maintenance and update on the form and rules, we review submissions during community calls and co-chair calls. We act as the conduit between the requester and the appropriate person to help with that request. Maybe it's just connecting a person with a question to a person with an answer. Or maybe we know of a developer who might be interested in a project or is already working on something similar. Maybe you'll see your inquiry pop up in a Slack channel. Additionally, the GitHub is open to the IIIF community and developers are welcome to comb the inquiries. But we're here as the primary bridge. And what's next for us? We've got a couple of projects planned, and you will hear more about those in the coming months. But for now, we'd love for you to join our community calls, which are listed in the IIIF calendar and posted on Slack. Our next call is scheduled for June 18th at 10 a.m. Eastern or 3 p.m. Universal Mean Time. We'll have a summer break, and then we'll resume the monthly schedule on September 10. These calls are a mix of guest speakers and/or working sessions with the form submissions. And last, stay tuned for other accessibility and usability events, which will be similarly announced on Slack and posted to the calendar. We're sorry we can't be there in person, but we're looking forward to seeing you at the community calls, hearing from you via the Idea Box, and hopefully presenting more about the Idea Box in person at next year's conference. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So as a reminder, if you're interested in either of these community groups or any of the other community groups, all of those calls are open to anyone, and the links are on the IIIF community calendar housed on the IIIF website. So one more piece of community news before I turn it back over to Martin. So maybe if you've been involved for a while in the IIIF community, you've heard of COCO. There's a new COCO, same as the old one, new name. It is now the Community Committee rather than the Coordinating Committee. And it's been reorganized with a more structured charge and a smaller membership. So the new membership for this group, and I'll talk about what they're doing soon, is Dawn Childress, Julian Ramey, Trip Kirkpatrick, Allison Sherrick, Matt Yang, Brittany LaPierre, and Sandra Santos. And the idea is that the new COCO is going to be a conduit between the IIIF organizational infrastructure and the community. And they're going to be a sounding board for assessing proposals for new community groups like accessibility and interactive 2D and new technical groups. They'll advise on the care and maintenance of those groups, making sure that they are meeting their stated charge, that they're operating at their fullest capacity and supporting the goals of the IIIF community. They'll advise on strategic planning. They'll help us build and extend the diverse participation that we aim for within the IIIF community, and they'll work on fostering the health and sustainability of our community groups. They also may be tasked with participating in event committees like our program committee, debriefing and assessing challenges and successes of all of our events, and then taking full responsibility for the IIIF Code of Conduct. And then maybe before I hand it over to Martin for the news everyone is looking forward to at this point in the plenary, if anyone wants to take a seat who's standing up, there are like 15 seats down here and plenty in there if you don't want to finish, if you don't want to stand for the whole next set of sessions.
And while people are taking their seat, Bob, why don't you come up to the stage? So again, we've had a lot of participation from across the community here in the Netherlands, and I want to thank Bob for all the work he and everyone have done. But again, next year we need to go to a new place. So here we are in the Netherlands. So I'd like to invite you all to Paris and the BNF in 2027.
Hello. So for those I haven't met yet, I'm Nola from the National Library of France, and so we are very pleased to welcome the next international conference next year. So thank you to the executive committee who chose us. It's a great honor for us. In Gallica and the BNF, we are very proud because 2027 will be a particular year for us, as Gallica's digital library of the National Library of France will celebrate its 30th birthday. So it's a perfect year. IIIF does resonate with fundamental values of Gallica, openness, digital cooperation, innovation. To carry this project and to make it a great event for the IIIF community also in France, we are delighted to organize the event in partnership with the French Ministry of Culture and the National Institute of Art History. Therefore, this event will be a celebration and an opportunity to advocate for IIIF in the whole French community. Paris is a big city, but we want to make sure that this event will be as comfortable and welcoming to preserve the lovely spirit of the community. So, merci et à bientôt.
We also are trying to be economical by keeping the same color scheme. So again, as Caitlin mentioned, please join us in a community call, subscribe to the newsletter, or join us on the Slack channels. Oops. And with that, I'd like to bring Tom Cramer, who is the chair of our executive committee for the first part of our program, and I will let So one of the things we're going to talk about to kick off the conference is a concept that we've been working on, which is the IIIF Content Commons. So again, remind you all what a commons is. A commons, and we've heard the word silos a number of times today, and again, what we want to do with a commons is not have a silo. So again, it involves voluntary sharing, a legal framework, core purposes, and types of content. And before anyone from Minnesota tells me that this is not a silo, because it's actually a water tower, but it's in Rochester, Minnesota, and it looks that's a good, great image. The commons also involves a public domain concept, attributions, share and share alike, non-commercial, and no derivatives. So working within that whole Creative Commons to provide access to that content.
Thank you, Martin. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tom Cramer. I'm the Associate University Librarian at Stanford. I am also the chair of the Executive and Operating Committee, and was there at the beginning of IIIF, and it was wonderful to see the success that we've seen, the wonderfully articulate statement on the benefits of IIIF from our host institutions. And I think in retrospect, it's very clear that IIIF has been extraordinarily successful by any means, and certainly within the cultural heritage and research sectors. There are thousands of institutions worldwide that have adopted IIIF. There's a fantastic set of APIs. It was 6 years in the making for the latest release, according to Glenn's dancing dog, which will stay with me all week. We have a thriving software ecosystem. There's literally hundreds and hundreds of software titles, and we have a global community of adopters. I'm particularly impressed by Martin's map with the blue dots, including one that seems to be hovering in space down by where New Zealand might be, which is good because there's a whole Reddit thread on maps without New Zealand. It's been amazing to see what we've done, and I guess we might sit back and rest on our laurels to say we have accomplished all of our objectives, except this is a room full of innovators who are always looking to do more. Another set of APIs, though not too quickly. Always more software, always more use and value. From the original IIIF vision, though, there is one big set of objectives that we have yet to achieve in a great way, and that is leveraging IIIF content. We have collectively invested billions of dollars as cultural heritage and research institutions in surfacing content interoperably. And that comes with great benefits. We have published billions and billions of images and other digital resources that are available online. And IIIF content is largely available for free. It doesn't have to be, but for most of our institutions, it's up there and without a paywall. And every single resource that we publish interoperably for free or with minimal friction and minimal paywalls is a contribution to the infrastructure of human knowledge and the infrastructure of the web. But the full value of our content has yet to be tapped. Our collections from each of our institutions are great in and of themselves. That's why we invest in getting them up on the web. They're even better in context and relation to those across the community. And as we heard in the beginning, we are a sector under incredible pressure, not only for innovation, but also economically and technologically, as many of us are facing headwinds for a variety of reasons. It is not enough to simply put out our collections and sit on our laurels and wait for people to come to us. And we know that there are great forces that may be working to address this. There are new technological trends which are throwing many things up in the air, but the interests of big technology and big content firms are not necessarily our interests or going to meet our needs. So what can we do about it? First of all, we can go back to one of our primary concerns that dates back to the very beginning and that we deliberately put on a back burner, which is increasing the discoverability of IIIF content. IIIF content today is just like the community in this room and the community worldwide. It's diverse, distributed, multifaceted, and all over the place, both literally and figuratively. As a community, we still have not broadly adopted a mechanism to enable really facile discovery for aggregation and reuse. Descriptive metadata, which Rob Sanderson at the beginning says, we will not do descriptive metadata, we are not going to get into the metadata wars, and he was right. That remains an unsolved standard for the world and also for us. Collection manifests and activity streams are both great technical bits, but they are adopted in the minority within and across the community. And I don't think any of us are expecting or reasonably expecting a universal IIIF search engine to be developed. It seems unlikely and also seems undesirable for multiple reasons. So let's go back to commons.
So again, we've heard a lot about commons over the years, and I think, wasn't there a tragedy of the commons where this was actually something that really didn't work out? And of course, there's this well-known paper where they outlined the tragedy of the commons and how this was a challenging idea. But what I would like to think more about is the work done by Eleanor Ostrom in terms of governing the commons. And I think that's the key thing about what we've done with the IIIF Consortium over the years, what many of our organizations have done to help actually manage these shared resources and to work around the tragedy of the commons. So again, how do we make the switch from independent to coordinated or to collective action? How can we have individuals acting independently, coordinating activities, and whether or not they share any of the costs in the development of that common goals? So again, thinking about the common pool resource, which is really what the IIIF standard is, how can we engage with the community to ensure that we have engaged participants? And again, how can we help organizations, institutions, collections work together for that types of discoverability that Tom was talking about? So what about the if-then portion there?
So imagine if all of the institutions in this room took one or some additional steps as they made their collections and their tools available via IIIF. What if we undertook a deliberate and sustained approach to surfacing our metadata to designated and targeted crawlers or aggregators from people that we knew, institutions that we knew, that made managing and aggregating the metadata feasible? What if we leveraged our community strengths for distributed approach to curation, aggregation, and metadata enrichment? Not talking about a single aggregator, but one that reflected the strengths and the nature of the community. Then we would see the community of IIIF adopting institutions exposing and amplifying the value of our collections. We would be generating more visibility and more use for our content. And we'd be making it possible that individual institutions and users of our content would be able to incorporate the context and the related efforts from other institutions into our services and into our holdings, albeit virtually. We would be looking at a set of IIIF components, the APIs, software, and implementations becoming more aligned and more integrated. In today's world, it's quite possible to have a fully compliant IIIF site, resource, or piece of software that doesn't work super well with someone else's fully compliant site, implementation, or resource, simply because there's always wrinkles to work out. And as more and more institutions joined IIIF Consortium and exposed their content in these common ways to be proactively and deliberately aggregated and surfaced in these themed, dare I say, portals, we would see the value of human knowledge surfaced on the web via IIIF grow and the commonwealth of human knowledge expand.
So right now, the Content Commons is still an idea and it's under construction, but we're looking forward to having a Birds of a Feather session on Thursday to talk about this more. And we have a Slack channel, so again, we would like to engage with all of you to see what you would like to come out of that. One of the things I often think about is Jorge Luis Borges' Library of Babel, and again, where there's millions and millions of resources in that library, but most of them are useless and there's nothing to find. And so you search through millions and millions of pages of content, and maybe once in a while you'll run across a phrase such as, "Oh, time thy pyramids." So again, how can we help find all of those billions of IIIF resources, make a coherent content commons around them so that we can reach that goal of the interoperability of the IIIF? So we're kind of doing this already. We have our Allmaps project, and we'll hear more about Allmaps as we go, and this is a little bit of a model for how we can actually achieve that type of content commons. But there's other areas that we might want to explore that would be similar in terms of content disciplines like Allmaps. So again, medieval manuscripts, which is some of that work is being done by Biblissima, and again, that was one of the core initial uses of IIIF. Digital Library of the Middle East. Europeana, of course, is part of this type of content commons. Musical scores, 3D collections, and then newspapers. So these are all other areas that we might want to explore in similar ways that we've done with Allmaps.
So what's next? As Martin mentioned, this is a week to help flesh out the feasibility and desirability of this as a concept. If you have a set of content that is already begun to be aggregated and that you would think is of interest and value to other members of the community, please come to talk to Martin or I, or any of the other members of the IIIF Executive Board. If you are a well-known aggregator of content or services around a particular point, we will be coming to track you down and to talk to you, to see what we can learn from you and how interested you are. And as Martin mentioned, there will be a Birds of a Feather session on Thursday as part of the workshop series. And I think the last thing that we'd like to do is really look at, this could be an abstract idea, but it is actually not an abstract idea, because we're about to hear more about Allmaps, which is an innovative partnership. It's an innovative system and service for a set of content that many of us have, but it's also an innovative step and partnership for the IIIF Consortium to take. So I think with that, we can turn it over to Bert and Jules, who will give us a tour and a demo.
Good morning. My name is Bert Spaan. This is Jules Schoonman. And we work on Allmaps. Maybe some of you have heard about Allmaps, maybe some of you haven't. But we'll tell you all about it. Allmaps is an open source platform ecosystem for working with IIIF maps. Jules and I started Allmaps around 5 years ago. And I'm an independent software engineer, and Jules works at the TU Delft library as a digital curator. And the great thing about Allmaps is that you don't need complicated GIS software to run it. It runs all in the browser. It uses images from IIIF servers, and of course also the IIIF manifests. And it takes these images from any IIIF server of any institution in the world, and it's able to then transform the maps and place it on the map of the world. And we'll give you lots of examples. It's all based on a web annotation specification called the georeference annotation, which is a part of the official extension to the IIIF presentation API. We published this specification 3 years ago just before the conference in Los Angeles. And it's very simple. And this is all that Allmaps stores in this database. And this is all that's needed to dereference a map. In this web annotation, all there is a pointer to any IIIF resource. Then there's a mask with which you can select the cartographic part of an image. And then there are the control points, and they bind image pixel coordinates to geospatial coordinates. And that's it. And since then, tens of thousands of maps have been dereferenced with Allmaps from institutions all around the world. And people are starting to adopt Allmaps more and more and are starting to dereference lots of maps. And the goal of Allmaps is to make every digitized IIIF map in the world more accessible. And every map is one, and if everybody helps, we'll get there at some point. And now I'll just show you lots of maps. We'll start in Leiden, and we'll zoom out. And we start here at the Bert in Leiden. And this is the original IIIF image. But with Allmaps, you can select a mask, place the contour points. Those are the little blue dots that you see. And then, with our tools, you can place it on the map of the world. In this case, it's the center of Leiden. And you can also get other maps from the same atlas, in this case, and stitch them all together to create a composed view. And this is where we are. Maybe if I zoom in enough. And there's lots of maps of Leiden. The internet is a bit slow, so the map will appear eventually. This is a beautiful map of a street in Leiden where you can even zoom in and see the names of the businesses and the people that live there. Dirk van Kessel. Kessel, sorry. Dirk van Kessel, mensen. And this map, I think it's assessing the quality of buildings. At least it says kwaliteitskaart. Zeer globale verkenning. And another map, a bit older, but with very beautiful colors as well. And then there's maps like this. This is a famous map of the siege of Leiden, I think in 1574, when the Spanish army tried to conquer the city, but they failed. But what happened was that many of the dams and the dikes around the city were breached. I don't know enough about the history, but you can see all the ships surrounding the city. But the city of Leiden survived, and they weren't captured by the Spanish. It's a bit slow. Oh, this is from Rumsey all the way from California, so that's why it takes a while to load. This is a beautiful map of the Haarlemmermeer, which is now, of course, a polder, which is, if people from landed on Schiphol Airport, it's right there. It used to be a lake. And these are maps showing how the country looked a few hundred years ago. This map is even so beautiful, they put it in a frame. This is a map that shows the plans of how to turn the lake into land. You can see all the works that were needed. And they used windmills to pump the water out. Or no, they didn't. They were steam engines, well. But it was the Beemsterpolder. Oh, yeah, anyway. This is a beautiful map of the Dutch coast. We see the city of Scheveningen. It is a fun map. Of course, lots of countries and cities have maps like this, and they are not very geospatially accurate. And with Allmaps, you can transform the map so it fits where it belongs. And you can see that sometimes where there's lots of stations, there's lots of distortions to make it all fit. And Allmaps can do that. This is just a beautiful map composed of lots of different individual IIIF images, and Allmaps can stitch all of them together. And it shows how the country looked more than 100 years ago, and you can imagine how hard it was even to travel from Amsterdam to Leiden. Now you can do that in around 40 minutes, and back then you had to, I think there were a few trains then, but not many, but you could go by train, well, but there were no highways, and life was a bit different then. Yeah, so the combination of IIIF and Allmaps, what does that give us? Well, of course, lots of maps, millions of them, from institutions all over the world. And we can dereference them with Allmaps editor. Or you can use other software too, because the reference annotation specification is all open. So anybody can come along and write software that works with these annotations. It doesn't need to be Allmaps. And then what Allmaps does, it turns these IIIF images into geospatial images, into geospatial data. So these images become searchable. For example, in the geospatial index, you can find maps by their location. And you can display them on a map. You can print them even if you want to print books. You can compare them, overlay them, analyze them. And Allmaps provides open source packages to do all these things. And now for the... So yeah, this is what we can do if we just overlay all these images of Leiden, all these maps of Leiden, zooming out from the city center. These are 80 maps. And at some point you'll see the whole country. And Leiden is always in the center. All right, this is the... Now there will be a QR code. Nobody is allowed to scan the QR code except for Jules. Shall we try if it works? We haven't tried this before, so let's see. Is it working? I think so. Yeah. Is it open in different browser tabs, Jules?
No, it isn't. Can you show the course?
Well, otherwise, we have a different solution for this.
You see?
Oh, there it is. All right. So we made a little book. We printed 100 copies of them. So, and there we go. Can you see it? So we try more. Je moet het even rechtop houden, Jules. Je bent het... Nee, zo.
Wat? Hoe?
Andersom.
Wat wil je nou?
Ja, dat je het goed doet.
Hou me even zo dan. Doe me even onder.
Ja, maar...
Ja, maar hij zit gewoon verkeerd gedraaid. Oh, je hebt dat zo.
Yeah. All right. Do you get the idea? Yeah. All right. So if anybody of you wants one of these, but there's more. Yeah, so the maps in this book were made with maps from institutions listed here. But of course, there's lots of more institutions that have maps. So let's come together and help. And now we will. Oh, this is your task. Okay, thank you. Now it's Jules' turn to tell you about the Allmaps TripIIF partnership. And come see us if you want a flipbook later.
To the organizers, next time you give us more time, think twice. I would like to talk a bit about the Allmaps TripIIF partnership that has been launched and is in action as of this year. And it has as its goals to sustain Allmaps as open infrastructure because it's an open source project, and we would like to keep it open, not just the software, but also the data that we keep of all the maps and all the institutions that have already, and individuals that have trusted Allmaps. So how can we sustain it and also guarantee that it remains open access? Then the second goal is to introduce institutional benefits that make it easier for institutions to integrate with Allmaps. So for example, so that we actually introduce the concept of institutions in Allmaps, which was not there yet, and that institutions can also refer to specific versions of georeference maps that they have approved. The third goal is to promote the idea of the IIIF Maps Commons, to actually create a kind of a discovery interface for IIIF Maps across different institutions. And the fourth one is to create a governance structure, the beginning of a governance structure through the establishment of the Allmaps Advisory Board. That is doing some oversight over what Allmaps is doing with the IIIF funds. So now we have a completely rework of the Allmaps API, and API is now also open sourced. And in the API, there's the concept of organizations. And that's very new. So we can have organizational routes. For example, you could request all the maps that are related to your organization, and you can query them geospatially. And the organizations that are innovator or supporter for Allmaps, they have a little bit more functionality in that. We have now API documentation. The API was already there and it was already open, but it was not documented very well. So now there's documentation with also new ways to access and query the API. For example, to request all georeference map for a certain date or after a certain date, so that you can create recurrent actions and get your data out of Allmaps if you want to. You can also request maps, as I said, geospatially, but also by area, by area or by scale. And for example, by bounding box it intersects. So you could actually use the Allmaps API to integrate an interface in your own digital collections or digital platform that queries your collection geospatially. Some things that we will be working towards, and can work towards thanks to the additional funds of the Allmaps IIIF partnership. The first of all is the Allmaps Curator tool. So we've seen a lot of people who want to do georeferencing, crowdsourcing projects with groups of students or volunteers. And it's quite challenging to manage that if you are actually using Allmaps Editor with a group, and then to manage the result and to approve the result and publish that. So the idea of the curator is that you can actually create a collection of maps, which can be cross-institutional, and then you can publish that for a group of volunteers to work with, and then analyze the result and publish it. So that's interesting for a lot of institutions, but also in the classroom. The curator project is already old. It started with University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and the Leventhal Map and Education Center at the Boston Public Library, and the partnership will help us to really launch a first version of that early next year, we hope. The second big new part of Allmaps will be Explore, and Explore is a discovery interface to find maps of a certain location across institutional boundaries, but it will also have an opportunity to set institutional boundaries. So if you want to use Explore just for your collection, that will also be a possibility, especially for institutions that are Allmaps supporters and innovators. It will be a little bit more easier for them. We're also working on a narrative mapping template. You've just seen Bert, and also maybe some in previous years, we show these beautiful slideshows of maps with the animations, and basically we want you all to be able to make these types of story maps, so to speak, yourself. Thanks to funding from the University of Amsterdam, we're now working on a narrative mapping template, which will be published early fall. And you can actually create your own story maps using Allmaps. So this will be a GitHub template, and we're happy to, if you have trouble setting that up, no coding experience required, but you have to press some buttons on GitHub, I think. But we're happy to help you set that up. Finally, of course, we want to expand the benefits. So one of the issues that we see is that APIs change. For example, we've seen institutions that are updating their infrastructure, and all of a sudden the link to the annotations in Allmaps is broken. So one of the things that we want to make possible is that we are able to patch to update our annotations, so that if there's any new implementation, we can make sure that Allmaps follows that. And yeah, there are all types of little small issues that also come from supporters and innovators' requests that we want to include in the roadmap. So here's a little map of the institutions that have already joined the partnership. There are innovators, Stanford University and also Yale University, and in green are the supporters, and blue are also other institutions that have been important contributors to Allmaps. And on the European side, and that's where we are. Back to the start. There we are. So we hope that through this conference, more institutions are interested in joining this partnership, would like to consider doing the top-up and collaboratively create or make feasible what Tom said was not feasible as a universal thing, but then at least make it feasible for maps. And what you're looking at is actually all the outlines of all the maps that are already in Allmaps. So this is of course not yet an interface, but it just gives you a picture, and you can sort of see the regions that have more coverage. But the idea is to have worldwide coverage of these historic maps, and for people to really dive into a certain location and find digital collections, high-quality images from digital collections around the world. So we hope you enjoyed that. Please find us during the conference and visit the website for more information. And also don't forget to play the arcade.